I want you to just imagine something for a second.
All right.
Imagine you are staring down an enemy. But this isn't an enemy that wants to, you know, conquer your territory or steal your
All right.
resources.
Now your standard invader.
Exactly. They don't even really just want to end your life. This is an enemy that wants to fundamentally change the very laws of physics and reality around you.
Which is a horrifying thought.
It really is. I mean, imagine standing on a battlefield. You're braced for impact. You are expecting a projectile. Right.
A bullet, an artillery shell, yeah.
Yeah, and instead of taking a bullet, gravity just suddenly reverses.
Oh, wow.
Or the concept of left and right just ceases to exist entirely, or the sky above you just tears open and turns into this screaming infinite mirror.
It's completely incomprehensible.
It is, and that's why we are taking a deep dive today into a threat that doesn't just break the rules of war, it completely rewrites the rules of existence.
It's a profoundly terrifying premise, really.
Yeah.
Because when we usually talk about conflict, especially in a setting as brutal as this one, we talk about logistics.
Sure, yeah.
We talk about firepower, attrition, physical supremacy. But the source material we are examining today.
Which is the excerpt from Architects of the Arcanum, the Daemons of Tzeentch.
Yes, exactly. And this text, it presents a complete masterclass in understanding how information, complexity, and just sheer, unfettered unpredictability can be the most devastating weapons imaginable.
Yeah, it's wild.
We are looking at an existential threat where the physical body is really just an afterthought. The mind itself, along with the fundamental logic of the universe, is the primary target.
And that is exactly the mission for our deep dive today. We are exploring the ultimate existential threat within the 41st millennium, a force that weaponizes reality itself.
Which is no small thing to wrap your head around.
No, not at all. And to even begin to understand how they fight, we basically have to throw out all our preconceived notions of what an enemy or a soldier actually is, because these are not conventional warriors.
Far from it. I mean, if you approach a demon of Tzeentch expecting an army marching in formation, you have already lost.
Right. You're playing the wrong game.
Exactly. They are the living embodiments of change, sorcery, and scheming. They are the chosen servants, or, well, more accurately, the fragmented extensions of the changer of ways, the architect of fate.
Which completely shifts the entire paradigm of conflict.
It does. You aren't fighting a biological organism driven by a survival instinct or a desire to reproduce or a need for territory.
They don't want your land.
No, you are fighting a metaphysical concept that has been given a horrifying, tangible form in the materium.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, because my brain is immediately trying to apply normal tactical logic to this, and it's just, it's short-circuiting.
That's a very normal reaction.
Right, because if a conventional invading army, say, like an Orquois or a Tyranid swarm, if they're a wrecking ball trying to knock down your house, these demons are a completely different kind of threat.
How would you describe it?
Well, I was thinking they're more like a computer virus, but a virus that gets into the architectural blueprints of your reality. And instead of knocking the house down, it rewrites the code so your house spontaneously turns into like a flock of ravenous burning birds.
That is a fantastic analogy.
It's not destruction in the traditional sense, right? It's malicious, weaponized transformation.
What's fascinating here is the ontology of that transformation.
Yeah.
We have to really drill down into what it means to be a living embodiment of change.
Okay, yeah. Lay that out for us.
Well, think about what a biological organism is. You, me, a space marine, a regular guardsman. We maintain homeostasis.
Right, our bodies want to stay the same.
Exactly. Our cells constantly work to keep us exactly as we are, fighting off entropy. Our entire existence is built on maintaining a stable state.
Right.
But a demon of Tzeentch is the absolute antithesis of homeostasis. Their existence is this constant, maddening whirl of mutation, psychic power, and plots within plots.
So they don't have a stable state at all.
No, their baseline state is flux.
But wait, let's pause right there and really grind into the mechanics of that. Because I'm struggling with the basic logistics of their existence.
It's tricky to grasp.
Yeah. I mean, if a creature is literally constructed out of the concept of mutation and shifting realities, does it even have a fixed identity?
Nah, that's the big question.
Like, does a pink horror or a Lord of Change know who it was 5 minutes ago? Or is it just a constantly cascading series of new identities all serving this one overarching mad will?
That is the core philosophical nightmare of studying warp entities, particularly those of the architect of fate. We tend to anthropomorphize them, you know.
Right, we want to give them human traits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We assume a Lord of Change named Kairos Fate Weaver has a continuous internal monologue, a persistent sense of I.
But he doesn't.
Probably not. Their identity is likely entirely subordinate to the scheme they are currently enacting. They are born from the vast, intricate tapestry of change itself.
So they don't have a past.
Not a personal history in the way you or I do, no. They have a function within a plot.
So they're less like individuals and more like, I don't know, aggressive algorithms executing a cosmic code.
It's deeper than an algorithm, though, because an algorithm implies a fixed set of instructions aiming for a final resolution.
And Tzeentch doesn't want a resolution.
Precisely. Tzeentch doesn't want a final resolution.
Yeah.
Tzeentch wants the game to continue forever. So a demon's identity is fluid.
Okay, so how does that work in practice?
Well, a pink horror might be split in two, becoming blue horrors. And when that happens, their consciousness divines, their motivations invert, their very essence shifts.
Ah.
They're less people and more like localized weather events in a hurricane of magic.
Yeah.
You can't ask a tornado what its motivation is.
Right, you can't interview a storm.
Exactly. You can only observe that it is currently tearing apart a hive city because the atmospheric conditions, or in this case, the arcane currents of the warp, dictated it.
See, I want to push back on that tornado analogy a little bit, though.
Oh, good.
Because a tornado is mindless, it doesn't plan. But the architects of the Arcanum are explicitly described in the text as schemers.
That's true.
A tornado doesn't orchestrate a 300-year-long cult uprising on a forge world just to ensure, like, a specific Magos is standing in a specific spot when a plasma reactor detonates.
Right. That requires foresight.
Yeah, it requires intent. It requires memory. If they are constantly mutating, how do they hold a plan in their heads?
That is an excellent distinction. You're absolutely right. Let's refine the analogy then.
Okay, let's hear it.
Instead of a mindless tornado, imagine a multi-dimensional game of chess. But it's being played by a supercomputer that alters its own hardware while it calculates the next move.
Oh, that's a wild image.
Right. The intent belongs to Tzeentch. The demons are the playing pieces, but they are sentient pieces that believe they are the ones making the moves.
So they think they have free will.
In a twisted way, yes. And their memory isn't stored in brain tissue. It's encoded in the warp logic of the scheme itself.
Wait, what does that mean?
They hold on to a plan because the plan is their anatomy. If the scheme requires them to remember a slight from a millennium ago, that memory becomes a physical part of their constantly shifting form.
Like literally physical.
Yes. It might manifest as a third eye that only sees the past. The plan dictates their shape.
That is so deeply alien. It's not just a monster with fangs, you know? It's an intellect that doesn't play by the rules of linear time or cause and effect at all.
It really doesn't.
Which leads me directly into this massive contradiction I ran into while prepping for this.
Let's hear it.
Okay, so if their entire existence is this maddening whirl of mutation, how do they even manifest in the physical universe? And more importantly, how on earth do they organize?
The hierarchy question.
Yeah. The material we're looking at explicitly says they are organized into a complex hierarchy that mirrors their lord's love of intricate structures.
It does say that, yeah.
How can pure, unadulterated chaos have a hierarchy? Isn't organized chaos literally an oxymoron?
If we connect this to the bigger picture of how the immaterium interacts with real space, we see that the structure itself is a scheme.
A scheme.
How so? This is a trap that imperial scholars, inquisitors, and even we as observers fall into. We equate chaos with random noise, with a complete lack of order.
Which makes sense, logically.
Sure, but the architect of fate does not deal in mere randomness. Mere randomness is boring. Randomness doesn't manipulate.
Right, right. If you just flip a coin endlessly, it's unpredictable, but it isn't cunning. It's not trying to trick you.
Exactly. The hierarchy described among Tzeentch's legions isn't a rigid ladder like the Astra Militarum.
You don't have a sergeant reporting to a lieutenant who reports to a captain.
No, not in a neat, understandable chain of command. It is a fractal, ever-shifting puzzle.
See, I have a hard time visualizing a fractal puzzle functioning as a military or bureaucratic structure.
It's definitely counterintuitive.
Because fractals follow mathematical rules. If you zoom in on a Mandelbrot set, it's infinitely complex, but it's ordered. It's a formula.
Yes, exactly.
If Tzeentch is pure chaos, even a fractal seems too orderly. How does that make sense in a chaotic hierarchy?
Because the fractal is a mirage.
A mirage.
It's an illusion of order designed to snare the logical mind. Let's say you are an inquisitor trying to map out a Tzeentchian cult.
Okay, I'm following.
You find a cell leader. You trace their communications to a planetary governor. You think, aha, the governor is the top of the pyramid.
Standard investigation.
Right. But then you realize the governor is being manipulated by his astrologer,
Oh, boy.
who is secretly taking orders from the very cell leader you caught in the first place.
Wait, it's a loop.
It gets worse. That cell leader is actually a demon in disguise, who is currently scheming to assassinate itself to trigger a blood ritual.
That's insane.
The hierarchy is real in the moment you observe it, but the act of observing it changes it. The chain of command is based purely on who holds the most leverage, the most potent secret at any given microsecond.
Okay, that makes the summoning process make so much more sense to me now.
How so?
Well, the text notes that bringing these entities into the physical world requires a ritual of immense complexity. It's not just drawing an 8-pointed star in blood and sacrificing a grox, right?
Not at all. Blood and basic geometry are for Khorne or Chaos Undivided.
Yeah, they like the straightforward stuff.
Exactly. Summoning a high-level Demon of Tzeentch is an arcane engineering project that requires breaking the foundational logic of the materium.
Let's walk through the mechanics of that.
Okay.
Because you don't just open a door. You have to convince reality that the door was always open, while simultaneously proving that doors don't exist.
That's a great way to put it. Walk me through what that actually looks like for a cultist, in your mind. What are they actually doing?
I mean, that's what I want to know. What does that ritual look like?
Well, it might involve chanting a sequence of prime numbers backward while playing a musical instrument constructed from the bones of a lyre.
Okay, creepy.
And that playing has to be timed exactly to the moment a specific star in a neighboring system goes supernova.
Seriously? That's the level of complexity.
But even that is too physical. The true ritual is mental. The summoner has to hold two completely contradictory truths in their mind at the same time without going mad.
Oh, wow.
They have to solve a cosmic lethal riddle. The act of bringing a demon into reality requires the summoner to engage in a hyper-complex mental exercise that generates enough psychic friction to burn a hole through the veil.
So the complexity of the ritual acts as like a harmonic resonance, like a tuning fork.
Yes.
You have to make your mind vibrate at the exact frequency of madness and paradox that the demon operates on natively.
That is an incredibly apt way to put it. The ritual isn't a transactional payment like I give you a soul, you give me a demon.
Right.
It's an alignment of state. And because the demon state is one of hyper-complex paradoxical plotting, the ritual must reflect that. The summoner is essentially building a temporary landing pad made out of convoluted logic.
And what happens if they mess up?
If there is a single flaw in the logic, a single moment of straightforward rational thought, the ritual collapses.
And I'm guessing that's bad for the summoner.
Extremely. Usually the summoner is turned into an inside-out crystalline statue or just sucked entirely into the warp.
Ouch. Well, here's where it gets really interesting to me.
Okay.
Because if we accept that their very arrival into reality requires this ecosystem of lies and complexity, we have to look at how they interact with one another once they are here.
Their internal politics.
Yeah. The source material dives into their internal culture. It says their society is one of constant, intricate scheming, where trust is a weakness and knowledge is the only currency that matters.
The great game of schemes.
Exactly. And honestly, it sounds like the most cutthroat corporate espionage or hyper-paranoid political thriller imaginable, but magnified to a cosmic scale where everyone is constantly betraying everyone else.
This raises an important question, and I want you listening to really try and conceptualize this. What does a culture actually look like where trust is literally classified as a fatal flaw?
It's hard to even picture.
Right. I don't mean a cynical human society where people are simply untrustworthy. I mean a reality where the fundamental concept of relying on another entity is a guaranteed death sentence.
It's hard to even fathom. In human societies, even the most adversarial, paranoid regimes on ancient Terra or in the modern Imperium, there's a baseline of trust required just to function on a daily basis.
You need a foundation.
You do. You trust that gravity will hold you down. You trust that the ration bar you're eating isn't poisoned by the quartermaster. You trust that words mean what they mean.
Exactly. For a human, trust is the mortar that holds the bricks of reality together. For the Daemons of Tzeentch, trust is vulnerability.
Weak point?
If you trust, you become predictable. If you are predictable, your actions can be modeled. And if your actions can be modeled, you are no longer a player in the great game.
You are a pawn.
You are a pawn.
And the concept of knowledge as currency completely flips the script on how we view power dynamics. Let's really drill into the mechanics of this arcane economy.
It's fascinating.
In our world, or in a hive city, money buys resources. You trade thrones or credits for food, promethium, last packs, shelter.
Tangible goods.
Right. But in their world, knowing a secret is the literal capital used to survive and dominate.
Let's construct a hypothetical scenario to understand this economy. Imagine two greater demons, lords of change.
Okay, got him in my head.
They don't fight with flaming swords over a piece of land. They engage in a trade dispute.
A trade dispute between demons, I love it.
Lord A knows the exact sequence of genetic mutations that will cause a Space Marine chapter to fall to chaos in 3,000 years.
That's a very specific secret.
But that piece of knowledge is a high-value asset. It has weight, it has metaphysical mass in the warp.
So how does Lord A use that? Do they spend it?
They leverage it. Lord A might trade a fraction of that secret to Lord B in exchange for the true name of a planetary governor's mistress.
Okay, fair trade.
But the exchange isn't straightforward. Lord A will wrap the secret in 7 layers of cipher, 3 of which are lethal paradoxes that will devour the mind of any lesser demon that tries to decode it.
Of course you will. Why make it easy?
And Lord B, upon receiving this knowledge and decoding it, instantly increases in power.
Wait, physically?
Yes, their physical avatar might grow larger, their feathers might shimmer with new, impossible colors because they have accreted more truth.
That's amazing. And what happens if Lord A gets outplayed? What is the equivalent of going bankrupt in an economy of secrets?
Bankruptcy is metaphysical diminution.
Meaning they shrink.
Essentially, yes. If you are outmaneuvered, if someone discovers your secrets without giving you anything in return, or if your schemes are unraveled and rendered obsolete, you lose your capital.
You lose your wealth.
And because demons are made of their own schemes, losing your secrets means losing your physical and psychic mass.
Oh.
The Lord of Change, who gets utterly humiliated in the great game, doesn't just lose status. They might literally shrink, devolving into a lesser demon, a gibbering horror, or simply dissolving entirely back into the raw, chaotic soup of the warp.
Imagine applying that to your own life. Imagine your entire sense of self, your literal physical mass and biological continuity depended entirely on knowing something your coworker didn't.
It would be exhausting.
It'd be unbearable. And the moment they figure out your secret, you physically start to dissolve. The sheer mental fatigue of that existence is staggering.
Well, assuming they feel fatigued the way we do.
Right, but you wake up assuming demons experience anything resembling a cycle of rest, which I highly doubt, and your first and only thought is, how is my superior manipulating me into betraying my subordinate so that he can steal the secret I stole from a rival cult yesterday?
It's an eternity of hypervigilance.
Yeah, it is a society of eternal, frenetic, intellectual motion.
There can be no rest. If knowledge is currency, then hoarding secrets increases your net worth. But deploying disinformation is how you actively bankrupt your rivals.
Disinformation as a weapon.
Yes, they are constantly polluting the information stream. A demon might spend a century whispering an incredibly complex, totally fabricated prophecy into the minds of a dozen seers.
Just to mess with them.
Purely to force a rival demon to expend energy trying to unravel a puzzle that has no solution.
That is just, it's a cosmic DDoS attack on your rival's brain. You flood them with garbage data so they can't process the real threat.
Precisely. And that exhaustion, that constant grinding necessity to outthink an opponent who is also entirely made of thought, deception, and magic is exactly what makes them so unfathomably lethal when they turn their attention outward.
When they look at us.
Yes. When they stop playing the great game among themselves for a microsecond and focus their paranoid, weaponized intellects on the Imperium of Man.
Which brings us to the actual battlefield. Because when a culture built entirely on secrets, shifting hierarchies, and the absolute rejection of trust goes to war against humanity, what does that conflict actually look like?
It's unlike anything else.
Right. If they don't value physical territory, how do they fight for it? The source material refers to their combat doctrine as the art of the arcane.
It is a profound departure from traditional warfare, and it is arguably the most difficult type of combat for the Imperial military apparatus to counter.
Because the Imperium is built for conventional war.
Exactly. The Astra Militarum, the Space Marines, they are built to fight physical wars. They understand ballistics, armor penetration, flanking maneuvers, and orbital bombardment.
The solid stuff.
The Daemons of Tzeentch do not rely on brute force. They don't fight with blade or bolt. Their arsenal consists entirely of psychic power, sensory misdirection, and unpredictable, devastating magic.
I was trying to visualize this while reading the source material. We've talked about the magic show analogy, but let's make it as grim and visceral as it actually is in this universe.
Please do.
Fighting this enemy has to feel like being trapped in a localized reality collapse, where the misdirection is the thing that actually kills you. It's not a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat.
Far from it.
It's an entity making you look at its right hand, and while your eyes are tracked there, its left hand convinces your lungs that oxygen is a solid, and you instantly suffocate on the air you're breathing.
That is a brutally accurate description of warp-based combat. Let's place you, the listener, right in the center of that battlefield.
Oh, this will be good.
Let's create a hyper-detailed, granular narrative of what an engagement against the architects of the Arcanum looks like.
Set the scene.
You are a veteran guardsman of the Astra Militarum. You have survived orcs, you have survived heretic uprisings, you are dug deep into a reinforced trench line on a contested world.
I'm feeling confident.
You have a heavy bolter mounted, you have your last gun, you have millions of tons of ferrocretan armor between you and the enemy line. You're preparing for a physical charge. You are doing the math on a firing range and kill zones.
Right, you're relying on the physics of war. You know that if an object of a certain mass moves at a certain speed toward your trench, your heavy bolter will exert enough kinetic energy to stop it. That is the fundamental contract of war.
Exactly. You are relying on the contract of physics, and then the forces of Tzeentch attack.
Here we go.
But there is no artillery barrage, there was no war cry. Instead, the ambient temperature drops 40 degrees in a second.
Just instantly freezing.
The sky, which was a polluted gray, suddenly fractures into a kaleidoscope of impossible screaming colors. The reassuring weight of the last gun in your hands suddenly feels wrong.
Wrong how?
It feels like writhing serpents, or it feels like it's made of your own regrets.
So the sensory input is no longer reliable. Your eyes and hands are lying to you.
Yes, a Lord of Change doesn't need to cross the no man's land to kill you. It merely needs to rewrite the localized laws of physics so that the trench itself becomes a hostile entity.
Okay, give me an example of that.
Well, say a pink horror bounds towards your line. You open fire, your heavy bolter rounds strike the creature, but instead of kinetic impact, the rounds turn into iridescent butterflies upon touching the demon's aura.
Wait, what? Butterfly?
Yes. The demon laughs, a sound that causes the memories of your childhood to physically bleed out of your ears. It points a claw at your squad's bunker.
And it doesn't blow the bunker up. That would be too mundane.
It doesn't blow it up. It alters the atomic cohesion of the ferrocrete, turning it into glass.
Oh, no.
And then it alters the frequency of the ambient sound on the battlefield to perfectly match the resonant frequency of that glass.
That is horrifying.
The bunker shatters, turning into a billion razor-sharp projectiles driven by a psychic wind. You haven't just been outflanked. The physical components of your defense have been weaponized against you.
Let's talk about the psychological trauma of that. You're a soldier. You are trained to suppress fear of death, sure. But how do you suppress the fear of unreality?
It's nearly impossible.
If an orc chops your arm off, you understand what happened. A blade severed tissue and bone. You can process that trauma.
Mechanically, it makes sense.
Yeah. But if a demon of Tzeentch looks at you and suddenly your arm has never existed, and you have a vivid, implanted memory of being born with only one arm, but your eyes can see your severed arm floating in the air, singing a lullaby. How does a human mind recover from that?
It doesn't. And that is the tactical genius of the art of the arcane. When you fight with magic and misdirection, you don't just destroy the enemy's physical body.
Because bodies are cheap.
Bodies are very cheap in the Imperium. They have trillions of them. But a mind, situational awareness, morale, the fundamental grip on reality, those are fragile.
Incredibly fragile.
Tzeentchian combat doctrine is designed to inflict maximum psychological and ontological damage. They bypass the armor entirely by making the armor forget it is supposed to protect you.
It's like spending a decade mastering a chess defense. You read every book, you memorize every opening, you sit down at the board prepared for the ultimate intellectual duel. And your opponent sits down, starts eating your pieces, and casually explains to you with mathematically irrefutable proof that the game you are playing is actually a butcher's block and you are the meat.
That's perfectly stated.
You haven't just lost the game. The concept of the game has been annihilated.
That analogy bridges us perfectly into the final and most crucial philosophical thesis of our source material.
The existential dread.
The existential dread, the ultimate horror of the demons of Tzeentch. Because everything we've just discussed, the mutating nature that defies homeostasis, the paradoxical fractal hierarchies that mock logic, the weaponization of secrets as an economy, and the arcane combat that nullifies physics. All of these things are just symptoms of a much deeper, much more terrifying disease.
So what does this all mean? When we strip away the magic and the demons and the grimdark aesthetic, what is the core threat?
Look at what the text lays out.
The text lays it out so chillingly. It says they represent the total collapse of order and logic. They are living proof that the universe is not a place of fixed rules, but a chaotic sea of potential. Yes.
I wanted to just sit with that phrase for a minute. A chaotic sea of potential.
Let's examine what that means for the Imperium of Man and humanity in general within this setting. The Imperium is an empire built entirely on rigid, uncompromising order.
It has to be to survive.
Exactly. It is held together by strict dogmas, inflexible hierarchies, brutal laws, and the burning faith in the God Emperor. Order is the only thing keeping humanity alive in the dark.
They need that structure.
They build massive cathedrals of stone and steel to impose permanence on a hostile galaxy. They worship routine and tradition because routine is predictable.
If you follow the rules will protect you. That's the baseline assumption of imperial life.
Exactly. And the Daemons of Tzeentch are the embodiment of the Imperium's greatest fear because they prove unequivocally that this order is a lie.
It's all made up.
The fixed rules of the universe, gravity, time, cause and effect, the solidity of matter, these aren't fundamental laws. They are just temporary suggestions.
That's terrifying. They are a fragile, temporary dam holding back an infinite ocean of chaotic, maddening possibilities. The warp is that ocean.
And Tzeentch is the tide coming in to wash away the sandcastle.
Yes. The horror is that Tzeentch isn't breaking the rules of reality. Tzeentch is revealing that the rules were always arbitrary.
Wait, really? The rules themselves are just optional?
A god's passing whim can rewrite fundamental laws of physics. If Tzeentch decides that tomorrow the color blue causes spontaneous combustion, it will happen.
And what do you do about that?
Nothing. There is no physical defense against a threat that can alter the variables of the equation you are fighting within.
There's this one specific phrase in the source text that we have to talk about because it gave me genuine chills when I read it.
Which one?
It describes the demons not just as warriors, but as whisperers of truth so terrible they can shatter the human mind. Let's dissect that. What kind of truth does that? It's easy to write a scary story where a monster shows you a gory vision, but a truth, a piece of information that literally breaks human cognition.
This is the ultimate weaponization of their currency. Knowledge. What actually shatters a mind. Think about cognitive dissonance taken to a terminal extreme.
Okay, I'm thinking about it.
It isn't a lie that breaks you. A lie can be disproven. A lie can be fought with evidence.
Right, you can argue against a lie.
What shatters a mind is a truth that completely, irrevocably invalidates your entire framework for existence.
Give me an example in the context of this universe. If a demon corners an inquisitor, what does it whisper to them?
Imagine an inquisitor, a man who has burned worlds in the name of the emperor, absolutely certain of his righteous path.
The true fanatic.
Exactly. A demon of Tzeentch doesn't show him a vision of demons torturing people. That's expected. He's seen that.
So what does it show him?
Instead, the demon whispers a complex, mathematically perfect, undeniable proof that every single atrocity the Inquisitor ever committed actually directly fueled the birth of a new chaos cult.
Oh, man.
A truth that proves his lifetime of service was nothing but a punchline in a joke Tzeentch told 1,000 years before the Inquisitor was even born.
Or a truth about the Emperor himself. A verifiable, undeniable fact that the golden god they worship is just another warp entity, no different than the chaos gods they fight.
Precisely. If the demons whisper to a fiercely loyal soldier the absolute, undeniable truth about the microscopic insignificance of their empire, or the fundamental malleability of the reality they've sworn to protect, the mind breaks.
It has to.
It breaks because it has no framework left to process existence. If 1 + 1 no longer equals 2, how do you balance a checkbook?
You don't.
If your God is a lie, how do you pray? If reality is a suggestion, how do you walk across a room?
You don't. You just collapse. The ultimate horror of Tzeentch's demons isn't that they kill you physically. Death is a mercy in the 41st millennium.
It truly is.
The horror is that they definitively prove everything you believe about order, logic, and reality is a fragile, temporary illusion. They prove the floor you are standing on right now is just a concept that a mad god hasn't decided to change yet.
Exactly.
That is a philosophical dread that goes way beyond monsters with tentacles.
It is the terror of ultimate boundless freedom. Humanity craves boundaries. We need rules to understand our place in the universe.
We need to know where the edges are.
Tzeentch represents the removal of all boundaries.
Yeah.
Endless, mutating potential. The text concludes by stating their existence is a chilling testament that the most dangerous enemy fights with the terrifying power of a mad god's will, a force that can unravel the very fabric of your existence.
Unravel. That's a great word.
Note the specific word choice. Not end it,
Yeah.
not destroy it, unravel it.
Pulling the thread until the sweater just doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly. Pulling the thread until there is nothing left but the raw, chaotic sea of potential from which we all supposedly emerged.
Wow.
They want to unwrite the universe back to a state of pure, untethered imagination. And to a being of order, there is nothing more terrifying than infinite, formless possibility.
Wow. Okay, let's take a deep breath and try to bring this back up to the surface before we all get lost in the chaotic sea.
Good idea.
Just to recap the incredibly dark journey we've been on today, we started by analyzing a uniquely terrifying type of enemy, an entity not born of flesh and blood, but a literal manifestation of change, mutation, and hyper-complex plotting.
The architects themselves.
We navigated through the paradox of their fractal, shifting hierarchy, a culture where trust is a fatal flaw and knowledge is the only currency that matters.
The great game.
We examined the visceral, reality-breaking nature of their combat doctrine on the battlefield, where physics is literally a weaponized joke.
The art of the arcane.
And we ended up staring directly into the abyss of a universe where physical rules are just temporary suggestions, and the greatest weapon is a mind-shattering truth.
It is a remarkable, dense piece of lore, and I think it's important to bridge this back to you, the listener.
Yeah, how does this connect to us?
Well, while we, thankfully, do not live in the literal grim darkness of the 41st millennium facing down lords of change, the core themes of this material serve as a brilliant, extreme allegory for the modern world we actually do inhabit.
That's a really good point.
We live in a world where information overload is a daily, exhausting reality, where shifting narratives, deep fakes, and the constant struggle to find objective truth can often feel exactly like navigating a chaotic sea of potential.
It really does feel like that sometimes.
The weaponization of information, the tactical use of misdirection, the idea that a society can be paralyzed by feeding it contradictory truths. These are not just abstract concepts from a science fiction setting.
No, they're happening right now.
They are very real dynamics in our current era. We are all, in a small way, fighting an everyday battle for objective reality.
That is such a potent takeaway. It makes you realize why these hyper-exaggerated, grimdark stories resonate so deeply with us.
They tap into something real.
Exactly. The demons have tentacles and magic fire, but the underlying anxieties, the fear of losing our grip on what is real, the fear of being manipulated by systems too complex to understand, those are profoundly human fears.
Absolutely.
Which brings me to a final provocative thought I want to leave you with, something for you to mull over as you go about your day.
Lay it on them.
In our discussion, we highlighted how these demons use ultimate knowledge, terrible truths, to shatter minds and unravel reality. It makes you wonder about our own relationship with information.
Right.
In our own lives, we constantly seek to be well-informed. We scroll, we consume, we hoard data, we listen to deep dives, all to feel prepared for the world. But is there such a thing as knowing too much?
That's the question.
At what point does our relentless pursuit of knowledge stop empowering us and start unraveling our own sense of order? When does the sheer volume of facts, perspectives, and truths become a chaotic sea that drowns our ability to act?
Something to think about.
Remember, it's one thing to fight an enemy that wants to defeat you. It's an entirely different nightmare when the enemy just wants to change the laws of reality around you. Thank you for taking this journey into the Arcanum with us. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.